It is June, and it's a huge month for Matt Rhule in Nebraska football. We discuss next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
All right, Mitch, good morning and welcome back from the weekend. As you mentioned, we are into June. I'm going to need you to build the case for this. So June is a big month. There's no doubt about it. Usually we think about June in college football, we think about recruiting. Coaches are out at various satellite camps. They'll be hosting their own camps in Lincoln in the month of June.
Texas early this week.
Why do you feel like this is such a big period of time for Nebraska football this month?
I feel, Connor, like it's a huge time because this is a period on the calendar where Nebraska can separate itself. Like there are many months out of the year where everyone in college football kind of does the same thing. It's a copycat sport. And, when there's dates available in May or in January or in December to go out and visit high schools, everyone does it. They just line up. I mean, I've been at these high schools where there's one coach coming in at 7 a.m. and then they got another coach coming in at 7:45 and then another guy coming in at 8:30. And like the high school coach is just like this, he's like this line leader who brings the coaches in and they meet with the players. If it's going to be a senior, you can do that with the juniors now. Like the 2025 kids could talk to the college coaches this spring. They might like watch the younger players throw a football or something like that and like wave at them, say hello, like in the corner of a field or a gym. But it's like somewhat unimaginative, and it's just kind of all there. It's something you have to do. You can maybe get a little bit of an edge if you form a relationship. But June is a time for Nebraska where I feel like Matt Rhule and this staff, because of what their MO is, it's really an opportunity for them to separate themselves from what other schools are doing. Everybody has camps, but they're not all created equal. Everybody goes on the road and tries to sneak in on a satellite camp, but those, again, are not all created equal. So there isn't as much of a blueprint and a formula, and I think there's a chance for Nebraska to do it really well and create momentum, because now's the time you really start to point to August in the football season ahead. Like the spring's over, it's summer. The new freshmen, new faces are here. We saw they checked in on Sunday, and some of them were here earlier. And so it's like full speed ahead to August, and no better way to start than to like differentiate yourself from what other coaches are doing.
I would call this is sort of a little bit of a vague thing, but I would call like interpersonal connection, I guess, the Nebraska coaching staff's strength. I mean, it's one of the things
for sure
that they do well. And compared to others, you get that sense too from talking to recruits or recruiting analysts and things like that. Like, Nebraska, there's just something about their personal touch. It feels a little bit different when you either visit Lincoln or when you talk to their coaching staff in general. So this is the biggest month of the year where Nebraska can really show that off. When Nebraska gets visitors during the season, it's automatically a little less personal. They get a football team to coach. They have to worry about a lot of other things. Obviously, I'm not saying that Nebraska doesn't take those visits seriously. They're aiming to make sure they always feel at home and things like that. But it's a little bit more. It's just like you said. It's open ended. Wherever the talks and the communications go, it's kind of up to like the vibe of the conversation that these coaches have with either coaches or future prospects. So I think it's right in their wheelhouse. It's right in Matt Rhule's wheelhouse, and it's a time where I agree with you, Mitch. They can really set themselves apart.
Well, I mean, when you bring a player to campus in October and it's a game weekend, the head coach and the assistant coaches, they've got so much on their plate, so much that they're doing. And it's not as intense in the month of April, but those 15 practices are important for your football team. In June, it's all about the players who are visiting, and everybody can spend time with them. It's a lower key kind of month for visits, and that's exactly the reason why Nebraska has made this month its epicenter of recruiting. You can argue, I think, with my assessment that June is the biggest, most important month of the year outside of when you play football on the entire calendar. I don't know if you can argue what I'm saying about June being the whole epicenter of all things football recruiting for Nebraska. It is when Nebraska plans to build its class. A year ago, you saw Rhule and his staff, and this was kind of surprising to us because it was his first offseason. It was like every day felt like it brought another commitment, but there were more than a dozen, and a couple ended up decommitting. I believe they ended up signing 12 players who committed from like right now, a year ago, up through the 4th of July.
I would expect it not only, I mean, it's a big month for Nebraska, like in the abstract of building relationships, talking to future prospects and getting kids on campus to go to camps and stuff like that. Like, it's also a big tangible month for them in terms of recruiting as well. I think we're going to see a lot of movement in the next 30 days. I mean, the recruiting calendar, believe it or not, it's getting closer and closer to the end of its cycle every day. And a lot of the top prospects on Nebraska's board are starting to whittle down and get into decision-making mode, I think, because a lot of those guys want to have their decisions made and have that all wrapped up before their senior year of high school starts. So there's a lot of guys who fit into that category right now that Nebraska, I think, hopes to have in their class, Mitch, in the next 30 days. You
know what's kind of wild is that, and this just dawned on me, but we're sitting here in June, and they're not even sure yet, the Nebraska coaches aren't, exactly when these players are going to sign. There's still some talk here, like 6 months away, that the signing date in December will be earlier than it has been in previous years. Like, it's become such an afterthought that they're okay with like changing the date. Just, I don't know, 90 days, 120 days, maybe less than that before they actually sign. But this month of December is such just a mess, and it's going to be even more so with the expanded college football playoff, that they're just like, yeah, I don't know what it's going to be like. We might be signing kids like the day after the conference championship games, or when the college football playoff is over there on ESPN, but we'll make it work. It'll be fine. It's a disaster as it is, and it's just going to be some different version of that. But June, like, there's more organization to it. There's more opportunity to kind of look different. The Huskers, many of their coaches today on Monday are going to be at Mary Hardin Baylor University in Belton, Texas, for a satellite camp. They hit that one last year, and then they'll be in the Houston area on Tuesday, where they will have like a seminar at a hotel for high school coaches, and maybe small college coaches. And then they'll go out and have a camp again. That's in association with Houston Christian University. So Nebraska got like Braylon Prude, one of its signees, came out of that event a year ago. And then they were able to develop relationships with other players who could be, future signees down the road. It's a big week in Texas for Matt Rhule and his staff. And then they end it by having Friday night lights at home this coming Friday at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, lots to look forward to if you're a recruitnik over the next couple weeks. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about Nebraska baseball's season-ending weekend, or their stay in Stillwater, Oklahoma, when we return. A reminder: please subscribe, follow us on Twitter at LockedOnNEB. You can email us as well, lockedonneb@gmail.com. Also, we'll leave one more thing out here. Little programming note: we're gonna be changing a little bit the schedule over the next month or so as we ramp down and then ramp back up for the college football season. So at this time, expect 3 episodes from us a week, and we'll get back to we'll get back to 5 when it's time to play some football and they lace them up.
Right.
So,
as soon as Big Ten Media Days are here, we'll be with you 5 days a week, and we may add an episode. Hey, if recruiting goes the way that it did last June, you may get more than 3 from us in a certain week, but we'll be at least coming to you 3 times a week, likely Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Keep those guests going on Friday here in the month of June. So,
all right, little Nebraska baseball talk when we come back on the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
Quick time out to tell you about LinkedIn. So if you're hiring for your small business and you want to find quality professionals who are right for the role, you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It has the tools to help you find the pros who fit your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just a job board. It helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who are not actively searching for a new job. In a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users do not visit other leading job sites. So if you are not looking on LinkedIn, you are looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, welcome back. We had the first weekend of June go by with some rain in the Omaha area. Connor, you escaped that and got to Kansas City to see the Royals on Saturday lose their 6th out of 7. I believe that's what it was.
Yep, vibes were not good. Vibes were not good all the way up until the 9th inning on Sunday. So I'm glad they got that one corrected at least a little bit to make us feel better going into this week. Just quickly, a little baseball analysis. When your baseball team is good and contending, quote unquote, it's amazing. You feel like every game is big, every series is big. So now all of a sudden it's June and I'm caring about them losing 6 out of 7. Last year I would have been like, whatever, 6 out of 7. What's the big deal in the grand scheme of things? It's okay. They're going to lose 110 games this year. Now I'm hanging on every moment. It's amazing.
Huge series at Cleveland coming up here starting on Tuesday. So we'll be watching that closely and we'll see if it gives us something to talk about here on the Locked On Nebraska pod. So I got rained out on Sunday. My team that I coach, my son's 13-year-old team, we were over in Council Bluffs and the rain came in. We had an 8:00 game, had a great day Saturday, won a couple of games in pool play, all set up for the quarterfinals, semifinals, championship game, Connor, on Sunday. It was going to be fantastic. Little rain. We got about 7/10 of an inch of rain over in the Bluffs. That's more than a little, but it's a decent amount of rain in about a 2-hour period. And went over to Hy-Vee to get out of the wetness. The dugout was starting to get some water. Little river coming through the dugout, and the whole thing just got canceled on us. So it ruined my well, it's not about me. It's about the kids, and it ruined their mornings, their afternoons. Just disappointed because mainly it was sunny and beautiful all afternoon, and we didn't get to play.
Well, and you got the whole setup day, right? Like you got the pool play day, and so the payoff is the bracket play and the potential championship that you can win. So that's disappointing. But
these are the problems that exist
in the morning, right? It only rained just for a little bit in the morning, and then had a nice rest of the day.
It stopped raining at 9:30. It was done. Anyway, speaking of baseball and rain, Nebraska had to dodge some rain in Stillwater on Sunday in the middle innings of its game against Florida. So what we found out, Nebraska baseball season is over. Huskers went 1-2 at the Stillwater Regional. Lost a tight one on Friday to the Gators, who are the reigning national runner-up. And then on Sunday, it got out of hand. Nebraska beat Niagara on Saturday. Didn't go to in barbecue and then came back and played the Gators. And Jack Caglione hit a ball that is orbiting the earth right now as we speak. And they lost 16-11 was the score. Yeah.
So if that's if that ball that Jack Caglione hit, which was 119 miles an hour off his bat, if that, like, I think the launch angle on that was probably what, in the 20s. If that was in the 40s,
got like 19 feet off the ground.
Yeah, if that was in the 40s, like if that got into the low 40s or the upper 30s for a launch angle, that goes probably 560 feet. I mean, it was an absolute missile off his bat. And that was, in the midst of an onslaught of runs. I was going to make a joke about the rain. They got 17 runs. It's raining, Florida runs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was always going to be difficult for Nebraska to, especially in the third game after you had lost the first game. Sears and McConaughey have already been used. Like you're hoping and praying for something like magical again from Jackson Brockett. And it wasn't gonna end up that good. I don't think, for Nebraska. They were gonna have to score. Clearly they got 17. Florida got 17. I thought they were gonna have to score probably 12 to win that game, and they ended up getting 11, and it wasn't nearly enough. So it was a fine weekend and a good season for Nebraska baseball. They won a Big Ten tournament,
40 wins.
And they won 40 games, and they were a 2 seed in the regional. Like, that's a really good, like, if you give me that shape as far as what it's going to set up for you in terms of postseason play before it, without the results of the postseason, I'm good with that. Like, I think that's really a good year for Nebraska.
It does in the end. It comes down so much to the draw that you get, and like how hot the host team is, and who the opponent is. If you're not hosting yourself, who the opponent is in that 2-3 game. And there was nothing Nebraska could do. It won the Big Ten tournament. There was nothing it could do about playing like the Aaron Judge of college baseball in a little league park. I mean, that's just bad luck that happened. And, I guess you could have intentionally walked him every time. I did notice that Caglione, after ripping apart Nebraska and ending its season on Sunday afternoon, he went 0 for 4 against Oklahoma State on Sunday night. But the Gators won and forced a winner-take-all bracket championship for a super regional. Did Clemson win on the other side? So they'll be the winner of that one will be
through. Yep, they'll get Clemson if they win.
So also of note, while we're talking about Nebraska and Jackson Brockett, did you see who won the Arkansas regional?
I did. It was not Arkansas. It was Kansas State, of all teams.
Yeah, no hit at Haymarket Park in April or early May. I believe that was right at the beginning of May. And then in June, you go and you beat Dave Van Horn.
And guess who they beat in the regional final? It was
they beat Andy Sawyers in Southeast Missouri State.
Andy Sawyers and 4-seed Southeast Missouri State, who took out Arkansas, earlier that afternoon. That was a wild one. I mean, who would have thought that Nebraska would have, in retrospect, would have rather been the Fayetteville regional than the Stillwater one?
So people don't know this unless you are a longtime follower of college baseball, but Andy Sawyers was an assistant under John Sanders at Nebraska. And when Sanders was fired, Sawyers stayed to work for Dave Van Horn. And Dave Van Horn gave his career life. If Andy Sawyers is not retained, like Donovan Raiola style, by Dave Van Horn, Sawyers is not the head coach today at Southeast Missouri. He gave him a chance to remain in coaching and at a Big 12 school. And, he went on and has made a lot of his career. And there he is eliminating Dave Van Horn in Arkansas in a regional at Fayetteville on Sunday afternoon before the Hawks, I think it is, the Southeast Missouri Hawks went down against K-State on the evening game. So K-State is going to be in a super regional. And hey, the Big Ten, by the way, will be represented by Oregon in the super regionals. The Ducks are going to Texas A&M with the trip to Omaha on the line. The actual Big Ten teams in the tournament all went 1-2. Nebraska, Indiana, and Illinois had one, and all three were blown out by SEC teams. I think all three by SEC teams on Sunday, or they were the other two were at SEC venues for sure.
Yeah. So Who else do we have here? Yeah, Indiana. I know they got drilled pretty.
They
good.
lost to Illinois lost to Indiana State at Kentucky.
So it was a bad regional Sunday, and just to note here, because like college baseball after Friday and Saturday in weekend series, and when you get into your third and fourth and fifth game of postseason play, it's very, very difficult. It's especially difficult for northern schools who just don't have the depth of pitching. If you noticed, Florida with a 10-run lead yesterday was throwing out guys who hadn't got it out the entire season. That's because they were saving guys for the other game on Sunday night, and then of course a game 7 in the series on Monday. So it's very difficult. And so you saw it across college baseball yesterday, where I mean there was multiple 20-run efforts by offenses. I mean it just gets a little wacky in these regionals, and you have to be the 2-0 team. I cannot stress this enough. You have to be the 2-0 team.
Yeah. Future advice for Will Bolt in Nebraska: be the 2-0 team in a regional. I'm sure he'll take that to heart and coach differently after he hears that from us. Hey, one other thing about college baseball, and we're talking a lot about college baseball here because the College World Series is coming to Omaha in a couple of weeks, and if you don't care about college baseball, then you're probably not listening to this anymore. You haven't made it through this segment, but huge game on the calendar on Monday in the college baseball world. I'm looking at my my schedule here to see what time this is at. North Carolina LSU. It happened, when that regional was announced, we kind of thought, hey, maybe this could happen, and it did. And they split a couple of games, and here they are, the defending national champs, LSU, against the 4 seed North Carolina in an elimination game tonight at 5:00 on ESPN2. So I will be watching as much of that as I can in some way to get a preview of what's coming to Omaha here in a short period of time. So
Mitch, let's take a quick time out. We'll get off baseball and jump back into some of the scheduling news that we got on Friday. A couple notes on that we can get to following the break. But first, if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, which is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. That's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, here we go. It's time for the NBA Finals. The Stanley Cup Finals are also on the way, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet, $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, or more. So think about it. $5 bet game 1 of the NBA Finals, game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals, even a College World Series game if you're interested in that sort of thing as well. You could set it all up for yourself on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Any winning $5 bet gets you $150 to bet on anything else across the board. Then you can spread it around wherever you'd like to. Head to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. That is with FanDuel, which is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Mitch, on Friday, we talked with Scott Docterman of The Athletic. He had some great stuff and some details of the inner workings of the Big Ten schedule and part of the release that we saw there's a lot of interesting things to come from it. Obviously, Nebraska playing at night on Black Friday. They're getting a network game against UTEP in week 1 on Big Fox. So we couldn't exactly dive into great detail of everything that we learned from the schedule. Mitch, is there anything else that you want to note from what we have so far, or even potentially what we the times and the networks that we don't have yet, which is interesting as well?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we're waiting to see what happens with Ohio State, with the USC game, the road game. There are some options that were announced for those games. Like, hey, it could be at 11 or 12 or 2:30 or 3 or 6 or 6:30. I think that's what they said on.
There was
on
one option games. That the USC nuclear Pac-12 after dark option is pretty interesting. Yes. The 10 p.m. local kickoff is very intriguing to me.
I don't know how that's going to work with my Sunday morning flight out of Anaheim, but hey, if
All
it has
night.
to happen, it has to happen. I'll go straight from the press box to the airport. Have done that before, and I'll be happy to do it again if we get Big Ten after dark. That there is going to be some Big Ten after dark. I mean, I think we've talked already a couple of weeks ago when the announcement came out about the Big Ten, the Friday night after dark game that is after a World Series game with Rutgers on the West Coast, and they're playing at 11 o'clock Eastern or something silly like that. But they will. The Big Ten said they will not do that again to Rutgers in 2025. So thank you, Big Ten.
Somebody had to bite the bullet, I suppose.
Yeah. So what stands out to me is Nebraska has 3 consecutive night games to open the season. That doesn't happen. That's or no, wait, one of those is a I'm sorry, 3. Well, UTEP's at 2:30 and then 3 consecutive night games. So Colorado, Northern Iowa, and then Illinois on Friday night. That's a new thing at Nebraska to go night in back-to-back weeks. So
I wholeheartedly support it, by the way. I'm all the way in. Like I think we got into we talked about we used to talk about like what was good and bad about kickoff times all the time. Maybe that topic is making a return this summer because it was with the whole TV deal and Fox and do you like playing at 11 a.m. and all this stuff. I personally prefer night games because I think it gives you a better environment. Obviously, it makes people like you's job a little bit more difficult, Mitch. And
I'm okay with it. It actually,
but it's fine.
It actually like makes it less of a strenuous day, to be honest. Like because we get the opportunity then to go watch football at in the noon Eastern window, and the Nebraska game, the one that I'm paying most close attention to, doesn't start until 6:30. So yeah, while you're up late into the night, it's not like an entire day of just Nebraska, which is kind of refreshing and kind of nice.
So you had your kind of schedule analysis on The Athletic last week. You ranked the most intriguing games. Love a good list, by the way, in the summer to kick us off. And
great
so
for May 31st,
it's perfect. I am no doubt Colorado is the most intriguing game on the schedule because of where it takes place, because of who it's against, because of Nebraska's lost, the last 3 times now since this series is restarted. I don't think it's a home game, it's a night game, the whole thing. There's no doubt about it. USC is your number 2, and I feel like that game, finds this perfect little space on whether it's Nebraska's schedule or just how the 2 teams match up, where it's an important time. It's in November, and it's also a team that you may have your eye on in terms of this could be like a toss-up game. There's like Nebraska's schedule is kind of black and white. The early half of it is they should win a lot of those games. The back half of it is, whoa, this is kind of scary. And the USC one, I think, provides this really interesting kind of turnstile type of game where, it could really go one way or the other. So I'm with you on that one too. That game is super intriguing to me.
It's a wild card game. It's like a season. It's like the tipping point game. One of those games where Nebraska just, in all honesty, has not had any luck in recent years in winning those kind of games. But that's the one where, okay, like you're going to lose most likely at Ohio State, and then you have some weeks in between the USC game, but it's another opportunity for what would be a signature win for Matt Rhule. You beat you win a road game like that, and it's like, people over there who don't normally look at Nebraska football are now saying, did you see what they did? Like, I mean, even if you're like at 7 wins before that or whatever, 6 wins before that, that's an eye opener for sure. Beating Wisconsin would be like that for Nebraska because it hasn't happened in a decade or longer. But I think USC, there's intrigue, of course, too, in that it's Nebraska's first trip to California to play a conference game. And, there will be more of these, and a trip to the Rose Bowl next year. But, just the expansion of the Big Ten, the fact that USC isn't going to be a juggernaut most likely in 2024, that all equates to me to a lot of intrigue, and more so than like Ohio State. And I didn't put Ohio State at the top of this list because I just feel like they're so much better than Nebraska that you might be excited about that game going in, or you might not. But more than likely, the 60 minutes on the field are going to be a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah, it would provide something. I would say along the lines of what the 2016 Oregon game did. I mean, Oregon, in hindsight, didn't actually end up being that good that year. But it's about the sort of brands, what people think about these programs, the environments that you play in, and then the quality of the game overall. So long ways away from there. But obviously, Nebraska hasn't had a big win against a marquee program in a game that mattered for a really long time. So that would provide that, I think, in that game.
Yeah. So check that out on The Athletic. See where I ranked the UTEP game. That one was hard to slot in because obviously there's intrigue with it being the opener and Dylan Raiola's presumptive debut, and see where I ranked the Wisconsin game, the Iowa game, Purdue game, whatever, all of them. That is on the site. You can find that, read that, react to that, whatever you'd like to do. That's going to do it for us on a Monday. We will be back with you for at least a couple more episodes this week. Stick with us. Follow us on all the podcast listening platforms. Watch us on YouTube. Want to let you know here at the finish that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels